Hi, my name is Javid, and the title of my senior honors project is What Now? By virtue of COVID-19. And my mentor for this project was Dr. Matapa. Sorry for that. So what is COVID-19? COVID-19, also referred to as the coronavirus disease, is an infectious disease that is caused by an RNA virus that infects the host. And when the virus attaches to an individual cell, it goes inside them and makes copies of the RNA, allowing it to spread. The origin of the COVID-19 disease is from the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 virus, which is also referred to as SARS-CoV-2. And the virus is spread through an infected person's mouth or nose in small liquid particles when they cough, sneeze, speak, sing, or breathe. The symptoms of the COVID-19 virus are mild to severe, and most common symptoms include flu-like symptoms, but it can potentially also cause life-threatening consequences. So COVID-19 and the pandemic that it began was not simply just a medical phenomenon. It affected and influenced people all around the world and society as a whole, causing disturbance, uneasiness, and many other detrimental effects, which it has had. Pandemics do not simply come and go. They affect the world in a much wider variety of ways. My presentation today will primarily cover the effects of COVID-19. So for my methods for my project, I completed a literature review on various topics relating to how COVID-19 has affected the world. And these topics included well-being, racism, higher education, and economy. And the databases which I used for looking up these topics included EBSCO and Oxford Academic. So the first topic will be well-being. And after I completed a database search utilizing EBSCO for this topic, I found 18 articles that correlated with the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and well-being in 2022. 17 of these articles investigated mental and physical health, and one focused on long-term effects of individuals who contracted the virus. There was a consensus throughout the articles that lack of physical activity during the pandemic negatively affected mental health. And these articles showed that 50 to 61% of individuals in society face this issue as it pertains to the effects of the pandemic. Although none of the articles could really determine the optimal amount of physical activity in regards to its benefit to mental health. In regards to the long-term effects for individuals who contracted the virus, one study found that 80% of a 47,000 participant poll ranging between individuals of ages 17 to 87 years old contracted long-term effects, which primarily included fatigue, headache, attention disorder, hair loss, and dyspnea. The next topic, which was investigated, included racism, in which a database search utilizing Oxford Academic was used, and this brought up 157 articles that were found which correlated with COVID-19's effect on racism towards Chinese Americans. And from these articles found, 23 articles were chosen based on publication dates in 2022. Every one of the 23 articles had a unanimous consensus that fear is what drove the xenophobia, which showed the social cracks within our communities. The consensus was that COVID-19 had a direct negative effect on 70 to 80,000 of Chinese Americans through self-reported data. These hate crimes towards Chinese Americans most commonly included microaggressions and violence, and the violence included robbery such as street theft, assault, and in some cases death. The next topic includes higher education, and for this topic, a database search utilizing EBSCO was used to find 21 articles correlating with effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and education in 2022. There was a unanimous consensus in the articles that virtual learning provided a space with limitations and disadvantages in an educational sense. And these disadvantages included limitation of attention span through electronic learning, easy distraction due to students being home when attending class, and lack of social interaction within the classroom. But a few articles did note that there were a few advantages when it came to Zoom, the virtual environment that Zoom produced. And this was due to the quick one-on-one interactions that were available between students and teachers. And an example of this would be office hours. So in regards to the economy, EBSCO was utilized once again through a database search, which resulted in 12 articles that correlated with effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the economy from 2020 to 2022. And economy all over the world was affected by the pandemic. In the Middle East and North Africa region, 2 articles know that Turkey and other nations in the area had to completely shut down schools due to the combination of economic, political, and COVID-19 concerns that were present. Many well-known companies such as Sears, JCPenney, and J.Crew are all facing bankruptcy or have faced bankruptcy due to the pandemic as well. Pandemics put businesses into a new reality that impacts their operations, and one where there is unclear guidance about how to effectively respond. Although there was one article that pointed out that online businesses thrived during this time. So what now? What is the new normal, essentially? In regards to business endeavors, there's been an adoption of advanced technology, such as fintech, that has been widely incorporated by manufacturing and service industries. And there's a new aim for businesses that want to adopt new business models that can restore productivity and growth. Mental health has also been made a priority. Mental health days are now being offered in high schools in Oregon after the governor signed a law that allowed it, which shows that mental health is starting to be treated as the same as physical health. There's a new emergence for new mechanisms for reporting and tracking incidents revolving around racism and fighting racism as a whole. In the House of Representatives, a new House resolution has been passed, which cites that all forms of racism towards Asian Americans relating to the pandemic will be condemned. And finally, there's also an increased regard for sanitation and safety when it comes to daily life. And we see this every day now with the incorporation of mask wearing and sanitizing stations. So I personally want to work in healthcare in the future. So I thought it would be right for me to discuss healthcare improvements that have come about due to the pandemic. So firstly, many different disciplines began to work together like never before, especially internationally. And this really promoted relationships between different companies from all over the world because all the different disciplines were aiming to save lives together, which started off with fighting against COVID-19 to now fighting other things in the future. An example of this would be biomedical engineering companies, medical companies, and convenience stores. An example of this would be Pfizer and Vons, in which Vons helped Pfizer essentially complete the rollout of the vaccines for COVID-19. There have also been improvements in increased funding for the World Health Organization and the CDC, and just local hospitals in general, really. There's also been a rollout of new innovations regarding healthcare, and an example of this is that a Taiwanese doctor created an aerosol box, which was created for the purpose of covering a patient's head with 2 arm gaps for doctors to perform intubations. And there has also been an increase in telemedicine. And finally, there's been an improved supply of remote patient monitoring systems and healthcare data systems, which promote the safety and quality of healthcare. So kind of going off on the last slide, my mentor made a really good point in which she mentioned that it would be wise for me to mention the impact the pandemic will have on my future, as I'm hoping to work in healthcare. So going off on that, in my future, I'm sure that I'll be seeing a lot of COVID-19 cases continue, most likely not as bad as it has been, but bad enough to the point where there will probably be a time in which, a long time now moving forward, that the temperature of the patients will be required to be taken and checked before entering the hospital or office. There will also be an increase in usage of telehealth, which has been exponentially increasing in the past 3 years. And there are advantages and disadvantages when it comes to telehealth. And then advantages for telehealth would be that it's quick, efficient, and very easy accessible. But a disadvantage would be that there's a lack of one-on-one connection between the doctor and their patient. Finally, the preparation for future epidemics and pandemics will be super important because you never know when the next worldwide pandemic or epidemic will be, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic came out of nowhere. The next epidemic or pandemic may just be around the corner. So, some mental health resources that I wanted to include towards the end of my presentation are that the Student Health Center at CSUF does provide a great amount of help, and health insurance is not required for the Student Health Center. There's also CAPS, which aids in mental health services and psychiatric services and also offers therapy groups. I also provided the disaster distress helpline in my slide as well, with also the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And that concludes my presentation. Thanks so much for listening.